So if there was one thing I wish I had done differently when I really picked up the guitar again to really learn how to play, I wish I had taken intervals much more seriously. When I began playing, I did everything backwards. Instead of learning some structure, instead of learning how to put scales and put notes together, I went right for a chord book. It was one of the Rush chord books that had their first, whatever amount of the albums were, from Rush to Moving Pictures. And for some reason, I zoned in on Closer to the Heart. And it wasn't a tab book, but it showed me how to play 3 chords. And I thought I was off and running, from that point on. It took me a while. Had I done things differently, I would have probably figured out. I would have probably learned that. But had I gone back, or had I started with the intervals, I think my playing would have gone in a much different direction. Not saying I would have been better right now, but I would have just had the foundation earlier to what I guess what I know today. And it was through the intervals. And what I would like to try to do with you here today is, I know some people think intervals it's a bad word. It's, they're scared of them. I mean, intervals are basically, it's your major scale and your minor scale, basically, is what it comes down to. I mean, there's lots of other intervals, but if you can play, a major scale or a minor scale, you're already playing intervals. But the question is, do you know what those intervals are and what they mean, or even what an interval is? So I'm going to just try to share with you what I've learned within the last few years, because I've really grasped intervals finally after, I guess, just so much pushback. I didn't want to have to dive right in, and I should have. So really, what is an interval? Well, an interval is just space between 2 notes. And I think that's where I might disagree with some people. It's just an interpretation. Whether it's, if you have your note here and your note here, that's an interval. I mean, this is also an interval. I think when I finally started to understand what an interval was, it wasn't just 2 notes or 2, random notes on a fretboard. I was using my root note as home base, basically, to see what an interval was. Everyone talked about it. You could find lessons online. You could find lessons, you can print out. But it was when I finally could understand visually using the root what an interval was. So what is an interval? Basically it's the space in between these notes in a certain key, basically. And I think what scared me more than anything was having to learn every key and learning what those intervals were. That's not the case. If you do it just in terms of position and numbers, it's so much easier. And you could take that and play it anywhere on the fretboard. If again, and we'll go into more detail, but if I'm playing a major scale, that was G. But I can take those same intervals and play them here with my root on the A. Same intervals, just playing in a different location on the fretboard. So what I'd like to try to just hopefully help you understand a little bit better, if you're having issues with it, are the intervals for major and minor. And I'll have down below, I'll have some charts up so you can follow along with what I'm doing here. But I'm going to start basically kind of where I've been with some of the other lessons, on the 5th fret. Why the 5th fret? Well, I guess because I have room here to move if I need to, and I got plenty of room down here. So that way I'm not playing open strings, and I just have kind of room to run the neck as you learn this. Because once we go over intervals, some of the next lessons will be the major and the minor pentatonic scales, which again, it's all about the intervals. So that's where I want to start with this. So what we would do is, we'll start with the major, we'll start and then go into the minor, and then from there, hopefully, we can build this foundation which will be good for learning other scales, other modes, as we just kind of go through this. So let's check some of them out. All right, so why don't we start with the major scale, which is also the first set of the intervals I want to go over with you right now. And the reason I want to start with the major scale is basically because there aren't any sharps or flats in that cluster of notes, basically. So, and really, it's all about just counting. I mean, if you can count, then you can pretty much get a good understanding of the intervals and what they really mean. So again, let's start on the root 6-string 5th fret, which is the A. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then again back to your root, which is the 8, basically, if you want to keep counting. So what does that all really mean? Well, your root is your 1, right? So we're going to refer to that as 1. In terms of the major scale, after 1 comes 2. So that's your 2 right there. Okay? Same thing after the 2 is your 3. And you can follow along with the chart I have up here right now. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the 4, and as you go down to the 5, are basically kind of special. Whereas you've always got your 1. It's not going to move. Your 2 potentially could move depending on the type of scale you're working on. The 3 will move as well. I'm going to show you that later. But when you get to the 4 and the 5, there's what's called perfect. So a perfect 4th and a perfect 5th. Those basically will, for the most part, will always be there when you're doing some type of interval and some type of scale. Some exceptions to the rule, but for our purposes today, we're going to say that you're going to stay where they are. So it's 1, 2, 3, your perfect 4th, your perfect 5th, your 6th, 7th, and after that 7th is your root again. So you can call it your root, you can call it the 8th, I guess, if you want to, but these are your octaves right here. So root, root, with the notes in between, basically. And that was basically your major scale. So if I wanted to play that here, or I want to play it here, it's in a different key, but your intervals are still the same. Now, if you've ever heard of the 1-4-5 progression, well, it comes out of these intervals, basically. Your 1, right here, which is the A, your perfect 4th, which is right there on the same fret, and your perfect 5th, right there. So the 1-4-5 progression. 1, 4, 5. So again, follow along with the chart that I've got up there. I'm hoping that at least it'll kind of open your eyes a little bit to what the intervals really mean. Now, again, going back to the major scale, if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, that just is going to continue. So if we were to do the whole fretboard, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, root. So you're actually going up 3 different octaves right there. So it's really going to do 2 things for you. Muscle memory, just thinking about the intervals and what they really are. Again, major intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Back to the root, or back to that 1/8, however you want to describe it. And it's also going to be just muscle memory for your fingers. One wrong note in there, but you could hear that because I was playing something that wasn't part of that major scale interval. So again, take a look at the chart I've got up there. Now, it doesn't mean you have to start always on the lowest string. You know, find another A. If I'm going to at least stay in the same key, here's an A here. Let's try that again. Same key, just playing it in different sections of the fretboard. Again, major intervals. And the flip side to that would be the minor intervals. You know, again, same concept. And if you look at the chart I have up there now, a little bit different. You can see the differences. No longer do you have, I guess, all naturals is the best way to describe it. You know, when you get to the minor intervals, there's going to be a handful of flatted notes. And the big one is going to be your third. Whereas with the major, we want 1, 2, 3. Here it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be 1, 2, flat 3. You can hear that little bit of a difference there. That's the major. That's the minor. So, little trick here also is that, and I believe this holds true for all scales, depending on what your third is, will determine if it's a major scale or a minor scale. So if you're playing something that has a major scale or a major third in it, it's going to be a major scale. If you're playing something that has a minor third in it, it will be a minor scale. So let's take a look and play along. I've got that sheet up there you can take a look at. What are the notes for a minor scale or the minor intervals? Well, you've got your 1, your root, which hasn't changed. You've got your 2, that's the same as well. Here's your first change, the flatted third. That's the first one. Your fourth remains the same. Fifth, perfect fourth and perfect fifth remain the same. Your next change is going to be a flatted sixth. So, originally from a major, it went like this. And now so far we have this scale. 2 different notes that are now flat, and you can kind of hear it in the notes and the theme almost. Okay, and then we're going to go to a flat 7th, and then we're back to the root, which is your A. So now if I play that scale, that minor scale with those minor intervals, along with the chord, you should be able to hear the difference. Let's try the, go back to the minor one. And major. So you can hear a bit of the difference there with the difference that those flatted notes make. So again, when you're looking at the major scales and the major intervals, it's all naturals, no flats, no sharps. And the minor. And again, you can continue those notes up and down the fretboard. As you get to know the fretboard a little bit more, you can go all the way down. Same thing with the major scale. A little bit of a brown note there, apologize. But that's the major difference between the two, at least to kind of get you started. And then from there, as you progress and just try to get an idea for what the intervals actually are. Again, just the distance, as I like to call it, the distance between the root and the other notes in those cluster of notes, basically, or that scale. That's how you're going to know your intervals. So again, the major intervals, major scale. Your root, second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, sixth, seventh, and then you're back to the root, which is the octave. When you're looking at the minor intervals, again, you have your root, you have your second. Big difference here is that minor third now, which is going to dictate that it's a minor scale. So your root, second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, a flat sixth, a flat seventh, back to the root. So just practice those. It's great muscle memory just to memorize this, but also just to get the fingers going. And then mix it up a little bit. You don't have to just play in ascending and descending order. Major scale. Something like that. And minor. I don't know if you've recognized this with both of those. You have your root and you have a perfect fifth. So no matter what key you're in, whether it's minor or major, you can still play your power chords. Because a power chord is not major nor minor because it only has your root and the fifth. There's no third there to dictate what key it might be in. So something else to think about. All right, so those were some of the intervals, I think, which are good foundations, good building blocks for everything else that you're going to do in terms of playing the guitar, whether it's chord structure, building chords, scales, learning the modes. This is all going to be the building blocks just to kind of open your mind a little bit and have an understanding of what all that means. So hopefully this was a big help for you. Certainly the comments are welcome down below. So again, hope to hear from you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.